Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode where I, through my corporate journey and educational experience, try to decode various business functions, various corners of the corporate, and I invite business leaders to talk about their success journey, their startups, and they share their stories and brand with us for us to have a lot of takeaway basis these conversations. So joining us for the show is my co-host Adiba Khan. Adiba is into product marketing for the past 4 years in Bangalore, and she has been also part of several startups that she's working on, co-founded by herself. Also joining us is Ankit. As we all know, Ankit is the co-founder of Dare2Compete, which is India's largest student engagement portal. He has done his MBA from IMT Ghaziabad and also an Harvard Business School alumnus. He started as a strategy consultant, then moved into the education sector, founding a couple of startups. Latest one we all know in the name of Dare2Compete needs no introduction. I'm pretty sure 50% of our viewers currently must be enrolled in these competitions. So welcome Ankit and welcome Adiba to our show.
Thanks, Aditya. Thanks for the lovely introduction.
Thanks for the beautiful introduction given by my co-host Aditya.
So Ankit, I'll go back to the very basics. You had a great MBA journey in IMT and then Harvard Business School, and it was followed by your dream consulting job. So when you decided to go for entrepreneurship, if I be more focused on Dare2Compete per se, and what were the problems that you faced in your student journey that motivated you to start Dare2Compete?
Sure. So just to be clear, I think Dare2Compete is the third attempt, if I may call it. The first actually didn't even fly. It didn't make waves. The second one did, but there were certain things that made us realize that hey, that model may not be scalable. And then eventually the Dare2Compete happened, right? The roots of Dare2Compete were started off as a blog during my MBA journey itself. And why I basically started Dare2Compete was because I was during that time. I mean, 2009, 2008 is when the biggies like Mahindra War Room and HL9 actually kickstarted. And that was the time when the competitions really started happening, both from the internal B schools student organized competitions as well as the corporate organized ones. And there used to be only single digits. I mean, you can count the names, right? So I suddenly realized that hey, the information is not reaching us on time. And that's why I thought that let's create a online platform which can sort of give information about various events, competitions that are happening across. And I thought let me start that with a blog, and that's how the journey started off. Right? But at that point in time as well, because it started off as a blog, more like an informative website, I didn't give it a thought through in terms of the revenue model or so. It's only in 2016, which is about 5 years after I kickstarted it, right? I went full time into Dare2Compete. We established a dedicated team. We sort of created a platform out of a blog or an informative website. And slowly and steadily, every quarter or every year, we added new features to it. We opened up a platform, which is to say that anybody and everybody in the student community can list their competitions. Earlier, it wasn't the case. And that's opened up the whole, so to say, this whole ecosystem. And when I say the ecosystem, there are primarily three members of that ecosystem. One is students, the other is colleges, and the third is companies, right? So we cater to all three of them, and we were able to sort of make waves and get desired amount of traction from all these three segments, right? We started off with B schools because that's where the whole route and all started off. In 2016 as well, we were predominantly in B schools. Only in 2017 onwards, we expanded to engineering colleges as well as the other graduate colleges, arts and science, humanities, commerce or so. And now we can say that we have the largest share of of this market, which is close to about 68% that we have, sort of 100 engagements, corporate engagements that that happens in the B-school or the engineering market. 68 of them are done directly or indirectly through Dare2Compete itself. And when it comes to student organized competition, we have a share of about 85%, because primarily all the listings and registrations are happening through Dare2Compete, and that's the whole ecosystem that is evolving every year.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's the a brief of Dare2Compete journey.
Correct. But I see you have also diversified the portfolio. So not just into listing, you have a lot of career sessions, skill building sessions that also you have added in that portal. So were there any
Right.
other such problems you faced while you were at your MBA college, apart from the listing point that you just mentioned?
I mean, no, not specifically. However, we are adding on to new verticals, new let's say business lines, as we realize that there is a need in the market. So that problem may wouldn't have been there a decade back, right? But nowadays, there are new problems which are coming into the picture, right? So we're trying to sort of tackle all those, right? Plus, there are also some sort of a latent needs that you identify in your journey of your company, right? So there is one segment to say that, hey, this is an evident problem, and we are trying to solve it using this, right? However, this is we are working in both the manners, identifying problems that they have now and identifying those latent needs that they may not be those that are not evident as such, but once you get those products or those services out, they will realize that it brings in a lot.
So, yeah. So Ankit, as I wanted to tell you that we will be bombarding the questions to you today, me and Aditya.
Sure, sure,
So
sure,
I don't want this event to be so boring. So let me start
sure.
with my first question with you. That you have seen the student community inside out. Okay,
Mhm.
so where do you think that the major areas of improvement for Indian student community exactly? Okay, and also can you segregate the B schools and engineering colleges? Can you suggest them about it with your
Sure.
tremendous experience that you have?
Sure.
Yeah.
See, I think one particular, and I'll divide that into two different aspects. Okay, one that colleges should do and are doing now, and one what students can do to amplify their experiences and to get that value out of their academic curriculum. So colleges, you would have seen the now diversity is a major evident topic that every college is talking about. Okay, a decade back that wasn't the topic. I mean, you would have hardly heard about diversity. Right? Within diversity as well, there are different factors to it. Right? Earlier, diversity was only a male versus female ratio in colleges. Right? Now in last 2 years you would have heard about that colleges are also putting emphasis on work ex versus freshers, engineering versus not engineering, and I don't call only engineering versus not engineering, right? There needs to be good amount of diversity in terms of a 10% will be from humanities background, 10% should be from arts background, commerce background, engineers, whatever that is. So that is something that colleges have started doing, and that is very, very critical in today's scenario. And at least that is very, very critical from the experience that you get from the MBA point of view. Okay, the stark difference, and this is what I realized at Harvard. So, I mean, though I didn't do that the complete full-fledged program, I was in their leadership certification program, which was residential, so to say. However, the one big parameter and one difference that I could primarily see was diversity. When you're discussing those case studies with different set of people coming from different backgrounds, they all come with different thought process, different viewpoints, and that gives you a sense of how to tackle a problem or how to think through an idea from different viewpoints. That is very, very
Okay.
critical, right? That can only happen if your root, which is this the set of peers that you have in your batch or in your classroom, are diverse. right? So I think in India, somehow we have lagged in that perspective. But the articles that I see, at least this year, the 20 batch which is coming, which is going in all the IIMs or so, the diversity is still better than the previous years, and that is true for all the IIMs as well as the other B schools as well, right? From the student's perspective, I think this is very, very critical, because no matter what you do, whether you're doing a job or whether you're doing entrepreneurship or launching your company, right? Imagine, because you've done your MBA, in the job as well, you will be doing some strategic jobs, some marketing oriented jobs, wherein you are not only interacting with one segment of the society, right? You will have to make maybe marketing campaigns or new business lines for the whole geographical spread, right? Which can be Indian, which can be abroad, right? If your education was such that you were already exposed to how different segments work, how different segments think through different areas, imagine within your let's say brainstorming meetings internally in your company or as an entrepreneur, you will already have those viewpoints, and you won't go through that learning curve that a normal person would go through who hasn't done that MBA, right? Because it's not about theory. I mean, anybody can read a Kotler, right? But
Right.
the more value that you get is from those discussions with your peers, and that is very, very critical. So both from colleges point of view as well as from students point of view, we need to create diverse groups within us. In hostels, you would know that there are segments wherein people are very, very comfortable in that society or those socio background people that we come from, let's say
Yeah.
South Indians, Western, North Indians. So I think those that needs to change for the better.
Okay.
Correct. Correct.
So, like the conclusion is this, that we need to be more interactive with most of the people. So it will be also a helpful. It will be also an improvement for the student, right?
Right, that's good.
Yeah.
Those,
Yeah.
those thought-provoking discussions need to happen.
Yeah. Exactly. So there should be a discussion when we are sitting in a couple of groups and with some of
Yeah,
the people, right? Yeah.
yeah.
And also, we
Okay.
see a lot of MBAs now coming up with new courses. We see IIM Kozhikode coming up with LSM and then finance.
Right.
Then a lot of one-year MBAs have been pretty conventional now, which were not the case 5, 6 years back. So I think
Right.
institutes are putting in efforts to bring in diversity. So
Correct.
yeah. And also, like you talk, I see Dare to Compete is into a lot of skill building solutions for students at colleges in
Mm.
the form of hackathons or case studies, or maybe these competitions that are currently happening. So, do you have similar plans for businesses as well? Because I have seen, like from my experience, I can tell these product-based firms or consulting firms, they do a lot of hackathons and training sessions for their employees. So are you also trying to address that gap?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, earlier this year itself,
Hmm.
we sort of launched the whole gamut of our services. Okay, so if just think through from our consumer point of view, right? So our consumer generally is either the marketing team in a company or an HR team in a company, right? So I'll talk about the HR team because that is, let's say, 90% of our audience, right? So they go through four different phases, and we're catering our solutions to all four of them, right? One of them is pre-hiring engagements, which is employer branding engagements, which come in form of case competitions that you see very much on Dare to Compete, and that is our bread and butter, right? The logical next step is to get into that hiring space, right? So now you have put your brand across to all the students. How do you get all the students? How do you track them, assess them, and maybe take virtual group discussions or interviews, right? So that is another area that we have already gone into. So last year as well, a couple of companies used our platform for final placements, right? This year there'll be a lot many that will be using Dare to Compete as their platform to hire B schools as well as engineering candidates, right? And that platform is agnostic of campuses, whether B schools, engineering, or even lateral hiring, you can do it, right? The third thing is post-hiring engagements. This is specific to campuses because the offers may be rolled out in December, but they may only join in June, right? So what you do in this period, which is post-hiring but pre-onboarding period, right? Can you keep students engaged, right? And the fourth is the one that you talked about in terms of it has three different segments. One is employee engagements, how to keep internal employees motivated. We are into competition, so we are already into gamification, right? So can we build those gamified solutions? The third is learning and development, which is to upskill and give trainings or so. We have our simulation games that are also used for their internal things, right? And the third thing is innovation challenges. So majorly, and that is where the marketing team also comes into the picture, or the business teams of the companies, wherein they are not looking out for employer branding, right? That might be a byproduct. Whereas for pre-hiring engagements, it is the main objective, and hiring is a byproduct, right? For innovation challenges, the main objective is to get crowdsourced solutions to their ideas or to their problems, right? And byproduct is employer branding, right? So yes, in the four segment, we are making waves in all these four segments, and within them as well, different categories that we are getting to. And at this point in time, we are the only ones who is catering to all four segments as one platform, as one service.
Correct. I think that's a very interesting point I have observed. Like when I was doing my market research before this interview, so I have observed that competitors are there in every vertical, but not
Yeah,
one competitor covering all of it.
one.
So that
Yeah.
that way, I think
And
hmm,
yeah, and Aditya, the other thing is that we have competitors in every segment. Our biggest competitors are, Google and FP. So earlier, if I go 2 years back or 3 years back, when we wanted to build that ecosystem, our biggest competitors were Google and FBA, because if the students can't list things on Dare2Compete, they will go on Google Forms or Google Documents or on FP groups, right?
yes,
Now, I say that our biggest competitor is not those companies, okay, but their internal teams as well. So if HR team can actually create a pre-hiring solution themselves, and they have all the resources themselves, they probably would need us, right? And that's why we have not 100% market share, but 65 to 70% market share, only because 10% of engagements are still done at a small scale by the internal team without even roping in any other third party.
yeah, correct. Yeah, that is true. Earlier, I remember my school days when I was in IIT Kharagpur. So we had Facebook groups to list out
Yeah,
all these case studies. There were societies, but they were only operating. They had a limited reach. So that was a
yeah,
very big gap. I am talking about 2012-13 times.
yeah,
That time it was pretty, but yeah, and now after Dare2Compete, we see now at IIM Kozhikode, every student has a group. There's a WhatsApp group of Dare2Compete IMK chapter. I'm sure this is for other
oh,
IIMs as well.
nice.
And it's very active. People are doing discussions on marketing and case competitions. So that's
Awesome.
a very good learning experience. And coming back to the previous questions, we discussed about diversity. So I had like
Mhm.
if I want to go one like go to the engineering colleges, let's say. So
Mhm.
diversity is very much focused and pressed upon in MBA colleges. But what is your take on the same for engineering colleges? Now we see that companies are open for similar roles for engineering as well. Let's say product management or consulting. McKinsey goes
Mhm.
to IITs as well. Flipkart goes for product management roles in IITs as well. So what is your take on that? What are the areas of
Sure.
improvement for
See, I,
engineering?
I, I think the diversity meaning will be a bit different in the engineering scope, right? Because the only background that they have is essentially schools, and schools in India or anywhere in the world, right? They are majorly towards similar curriculum. I mean, right now we have two only big boards, right? CBSE and ISC, right? Now, in those two boards, we have a bit of a different curriculum, but at the root of it, the skill sets and the learnings that we do, the subjects are pretty much same, right?
Yeah.
So from the engineering point of view, I think the diversity is uh, majorly their socio-economic backgrounds rather than their education backgrounds, I would say, right? However, within engineering, right, as you progress between different years, the engineering colleges or the students can actually take up different courses and have diversity within them, right? So that the discussions may happen, which might be very, very broader. So I still remember during my engineering days, there were a set of people who were averse to coding. I mean, whenever they see even a line of coding, they will go, "यार ये हमारे बस का नहीं है. We'll fail the subject," and that is true right now as well,
Yeah.
right? So and good that now the guidelines have been put in place where the coding is now started from sixth standard itself, right? So
Yes.
which is very, very good, because I think the CSIT students, and not only engineers, right, at a broader level, but it tells you how to think through different cases, right? Because when you're coding, when you're solving a problem, you need to get into different cases that may come up, right? Case one, case two. And when you are actually doing that, you are tackling all those 10 or 12 cases or so, because that's how the online hackathons or online coding also works, right? Similarly, there are other segments as well. Let's say a medical or law, right, in graduation, that you can definitely get into. But I think the discussion on diversity is very, very different in those manners for every segment in graduation streams. In PG, definitely the diversity is relevant to what you've done in graduation. But in graduation, I'm not sure outside of socio-economic backgrounds or so, can you do some different things. Within graduation, within those 3 to 4 years, definitely there'll be diversity in terms of the courses that you take.
Correct. And also these things are reflected upon in their career choices. So once they sit for placements,
Right,
we see around 50-60% of the people, they leave their first company in within 2 years, 1.5 years. That is the
right,
average number in India.
right,
So
right.
how do you think we can address this issue? Even this problem persists in MBA colleges where people do are
Yeah,
at the age of
yeah,
25, 24 years, still they are not having clarity whether they want to take up consulting or product
yeah,
management. So how do you think this issue can
yeah.
be addressed?
See, this issue, there are three main cases, okay, which we identified when we were looking at why this happens. Only because people don't get to know about different options that they have, and what that option entails. Okay, so the only way we can sort of tell them this, one is through, let's say, some sort of sessions, which is, let's say, a day in a life of a marketing manager, a day in a life of an operations manager, which takes them through the whole journey of that particular job profile, right? Let's say you start at day zero, right? Towards the end of first year, how your journey looks like as an entry level brand manager or a marketing manager or a sales guy or a finance guy, right? So if we can actually create those things, and this is something that we are working on, so that they get to know about those areas in depth. Okay, that's the first thing, because this is more practical than the theoretical aspects that we are taught, right? The second thing is, this is still something that anybody is telling you, right? You haven't experienced it, right? So the first aspect is that you get to know about those jobs. That's the first part, right? The second aspect is, can you experience those jobs, right? So can you take up not only one internship, can you take up multiple internships? Unfortunately, in these schools, you don't have that flexibility, but in engineering, you do have that flexibility. After every year, you can do internships, right? So
Yes.
that's where you'll come to know that, hey, what if I do a
Got it.
internship in product management, right? What are the elements that I'll go into, because you'll be working with product managers, right? Can you work with, let's say, software development or QA, whatever that is, right? So you have different internships in MBA as well. Officially, you can do only one internship, but nobody is stopping you to do any other virtual internships, right? But I've seen very rarely people taking up those internships, right?
Yeah.
Only because in MBA, you may not have that much amount of time, correct?
Hmm.
But if you're serious about choosing your right career, you need to do that, right? The third aspect is why people make mistakes is the buzz on campus, consulting, MBB. छोड़ो
Yeah.
बाकी सब पैसा ज्यादा देता है, go for MBB. right? But there's also a saying within consulting companies. If you have stayed in a consulting company for 2 years, you will stay in consulting industry itself, and you will become a partner or a senior partner, no doubt about it, right?
Yes.
It is so they pay really well, but they make you work like hell in certain cases, right? So you also find a right set whether you're made for consulting or those kind of jobs or not. So I think we are making progress in terms of how you sort of get in, how you basically experience those companies, and how you experience them is also through competitions, wherein you can actually participate in maybe 20, 25 different competitions. They have cases. You get a chance to interact with those leaders. So I think these three pretty much a day in a life of one job profile, internships, and competitions. These three, if you are as a student doing well, try to at least experience one or two elements of different job profiles.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important. We have been seeing there are simulation rounds, and you have to act like a stakeholder in a company in various case competitions. So I think all those things do help. You mentioned that there is a limitation in the MBA colleges that people don't have the liberty to take more than one internships. So how do you think these can be addressed? Because there's a 2 year MBA course and there's a 1 year MBA course, and 1 year folks are even at a less number of options they have. So how do you think they can actually manage that, manage this problem?
No, I think, see, the restrictions only official internships, right? But nobody is stopping you to do any unofficial or virtual internship or projects. You can do as many, right? So you can maybe reach out to any startup that is doing in the area of AI, if you're interested in AI, and ask them that, hey, I can spend about 6 hours in a week. Okay. Do you mind giving me an internship or a project for a month wherein I can learn what the AI is? And nobody will. So, I mean, see, IIMs and IITs are a very, very bigger brand, right? So, if you're reaching out to other set of people, I doubt people will say no. They're getting a talent at a maybe a zero cost. So, you may reach out to them, and if you have time, you do it.
So, Ankit, as we were discussing about, groups, the WhatsApp groups, the FB group, as we I live in Bangalore. Okay, so I am working in Bangalore, and we have a group called Bangalore Freshers Group for them. So some of the people, like, we have walk-ins and all there. So the students, the freshers especially, if we have one job, they'll be running out. The thousand of people will be going for walk-in and all. Okay, so I think Dare to Compete had made things more easy for them also, right? So like, they can get interviewed by Skype, or the telephonic interview, so it will be easy for them. So the major chunks of B-school aspirant in India, now they are planning to go globally, okay, through, they are giving GMATs, or they're planning internationally. So is that Dare to Complete is also planning to expand the activities throughout internationally or globally? So
Yeah.
are you planning in the same way? So I can say that, what are your further plans, or what are the future plans for the Dare to Complete, to
So,
how they are? Yeah.
So
sure.
adding
So
on to
we've already done that. So starting this year itself, we have
Yeah.
expanded our global reach. So last year as well, we did two campaigns, which were on a smaller scale. We were just tasting waters or so. So this year we have sort of expanded. So we are doing campaigns for different companies which are global in nature. So RB Global Challenge that you see is getting launched in about a couple of days' time. That is across 30 countries. Okay,
Okay, great.
and Lime is now open to certain other Ivy League colleges as well. So Harvard, Yale, London Business School, Wharton, all of them are also eligible for Lime this season. Plus, there are other campaigns which are also lined up, which are very, very specific to companies like innovation challenges, wherein a company in India, they want to maybe go in for US expansion. So before even going there, they can actually launch a competition for the US market where US students or working professionals can apply and give them a sense of whether that idea clicks through or not. So those are certain aspects that we are thinking through, but we have the ball has started rolling for our global
Yeah.
expansion.
Okay.
Right.
So we have been starting with the global and
Yep.
internationally also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, Ankit. Now as we see, there's a coronavirus pandemic for the humanity, and we expect a major shift in the placement process across these schools. The world is going
Mhm.
digital, and the usual company role perceptions, they have changed significantly. As we talked about diversity, we talked about the Indian student community itself being so mature and aware about what they actually want. So all these
Mhm.
perceptions and then COVID changes, all these are coming in. So how do you think can these schools improve upon their placement process and innovate it, or maybe improve it in a certain way so that both the students as well as the recruiters get the most out of it?
Sure. I think so. I won't go into too many details because we deal with all the campuses as well.
Yeah,
We have come out with our platform, which is accessible by corporates, and soon it will be accessible by placecoms as well to manage those recruitment processes. Right. I think one thing which is changing now from the corporate's point of view as well is that they would want to go beyond their set of normal recruitable campuses, right? So if they were only recruiting for 10 campuses, only because of resource constraint or so, they may expand that base from 10 to maybe 30 because everything is happening digitally itself. Now, they are not in those constraints of traveling to those campuses or money wise or time wise, right? Because the evaluation can happen online. So I think those things are happening, and in the digital world, it will be far simpler to for everybody to come on a single platform, and we as a platform just connect the dots between the recruiters, colleges, and the candidates. So we are working on something which I can't mention right now, but if it goes through, then it will be a win-win situation for all the three stakeholders.
Yeah.
correct. Now, like as per our interactions as well with the corporates, so nobody is planning to actually go back to the campus and do the offline process. So
Yeah,
yeah, people across these schools are planning to have some sort of digital platform as an interface to the corporates. Yeah,
So, Ankit, my second question putting up before to you, I wanted like people, generally discuss about strengths, that what are your strengths? Okay. So people say that I have a leadership quality. So I can see and I can imagine that you have a great leadership quality. That's why you're on this platform. So can you tell me can you tell us something about your principal guide, in your leadership journey? And what are the things that cannot be compromised with?
as an individual, whether you're managing a business or working, right, you always need to be hopeful and positive because irrespective, whatever happens, right, you anyways need to move forward. And I always say in every interaction that I do that rest assured that shit happens and you need to acknowledge it, right? What you do when the situation is not ideal for you to get into, right, defines you as a person. And we will all get into those situations, right? So we need to be positive, we need to be hopeful that we'll get through that. Only then you'll be able to move forward.
Yeah.
The only thing that I don't suggest anybody to do is that crib about that, hey, if this would have happened, I would have been here. If this would have happened, I would have been here. It happened, right? So it's a matter of a past. Just learn from it and move forward. So the sooner you do it, the better it is for you. I'm not saying don't cry, but don't cry for ages.
Huh. Don't be a crybaby.
Right. So I think those are the things that I also tell my team members as well, that there will be mistakes, but don't worry about those mistakes. You will sort of be able to get through that phase, and that has worked for me.
correct. We have been taught a lot in our HRM courses about values and principles. So I think that is something you don't.
Those were organizational behavior and
Yes.
HRM courses were the courses which were least interest to me. But now
Yeah.
those are the ones that actually are valuable in terms of running a company.
Yeah. Like from the long-term point of view, you realize that okay,
Yeah.
these were some of the principles that we had. Uh,
And if we
Ankit,
go into the school days, we will be doing our principles and guidelines from the moral science subject. Yeah, yeah.
I get that.
okay, Ankit, and what do you think are the industry practices now? Any sort of COVID trends? Do you think like any industry which is booming or any industry which is not growing as per the forecasts? So, uh, can you sort of talk about some booming industries as you have been interacting with a
I
lot of
mean,
corporates?
anything that goes digital will boom. It can be anything. I mean, edtech, your learning and development, your recruitment, anything that can be done in a much nicer manner and that creates value to the users and the consumers will boom. That's the general statement, right? You can apply it to any industry. In an industry where these things are not possible, that industry may not see the light of the day, or that industry may not grow exponentially, right? So you may see things. So e-commerce, I mean, what the penetration that they would have had in last 5 years or 6 years of their existence or a decade, right? They would have the same amount of penetration now, which is 2x of what they had earlier in a matter of months, right? So
Yes.
I believe that what would have happened in 5 years, right, happened in only 5 months. That's what COVID did for all of us because they made us uncomfortable. They made us realize all our things, and then I mean there are startups that are going on those opportunities. So Zoom is one example on which we're doing this, right? That's scaled up. There is a startup called AM Meet, which is an Indian startup, right, where you can actually do virtual events. That's a phenomenal platform altogether, right? Wherein you actually get a complete networking effect in a virtual environment as well. So there will be businesses that will go in. Overall, the economy will go forward. Okay, so when people say that economy will be declining, there won't be any growth or so, I personally don't feel that. It's just that there will be areas or industries which may not grow as high or as fast as they used to grow earlier, but there will be new industries that will come up. So everything will sort of balance out.
Correct. And yeah, thanks for that insight. I think that will be very important as well in people to take their decisions. Some people who want to get into e-commerce or digital technology portal. Also, you have been seeing this entire landscape, how the B schools got severely impacted by COVID. Everything moved online, and that B school experience, which is talked about, that you can only experience it when you're offline. That experience, we are very away, very far from that experience now, as everything is online. So how do you think students can cope up with that, how they can do their skill building, what sort of things students should do before they pass out as they are online in their homes?
I mean, see, my only point is that there needs to be discussions going on. On campus, it is very easy for us to, let's say, sit on a lunch table and do those discussions. That can be academic discussions, that can be non-academic discussions, but the more you talk, the more experience you get from the other guy. Right? That's the whole networking, branding yourself, and getting the value out. Right? Here, my only advice is that don't be just sitting at home and just working in silos. I think that is what you need to resolve, right? So maybe be on Zoom or maybe a video call with your friends, even if the lectures are not on, just to ensure that there are certain discussions that are happening irrespective. So that is not easy to do because you do get into that monotonous mode wherein you would want your laptop to be shut or so. But I think in a day, if you can have, let's say, an hour or two only on discussions, only on, let's say, talking to other guys which are not with you, I think you hit the nail. So the onus is now on you, not on the campus, essentially.
Correct, correct. And Ankit, I think students will incorporate that because that is a very pressing issue. I talk to my friends who are currently in PGP courses and how they are struggling with isolation and their own work, and then just running between the online lectures. So definitely these things should help. And my parting question, the last question for this session,
Mm-hmm.
as we see that placement season is coming closer, and what
Mm-hmm.
advice do you have for students who will be applying for various jobs and kicking off their career? Also, how can they survive this pandemic-induced recession? So we
But
experienced that.
they'll survive. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. Everybody survives. That's why I'm saying, just be hopeful. You
Hmm.
will survive. It's not that it's the end of life, right? However, the only advice that I might give them is that be open in terms of for a wider net. Okay, so I'm not saying change your main core. So don't go from marketing to finance or finance to marketing, right? But let's say if you want to do only marketing, right? Don't be very specific that hey, I only want to get into advertising, right? Or brand management or maybe digital marketing. The only ask is that be a bit open because you never know whether you would like advertising agencies better than, let's say, FMCGs, right? That's the only thing. So expand the scope a bit. Don't be too specific because you never know what's coming in, and that is true for I mean all students, right? But yes, I
Yeah.
mean the only other thing that you will have to do is that reach out to more people, reach out to get virtual projects, internships, participate in competitions, and be as diverse as possible because that will be playing a very crucial role in your placements.
Correct. I think the student community is also pretty much aware. When I talk to these MBA folks, D2C, Amazon, HUL competitions, they're all in the discussions. So they are all talking
Yeah,
about how they can uh, contribute
make
and
waves.
how should the brainstorming be. So I think D2C has played a very pivotal role in that, especially in COVID.
Thanks.
So thanks to you,
Thanks.
Ankit,
Yeah.
on that. Uh,
So, Ankit, I have a question, like adding up to Aditya's question. I wanted to ask that he was talking about the students, who are preparing for the placement jobs. I also wanted to ask about the experienced people who are losing their job exactly in this pandemic, COVID pandemic recession. So, what are your suggestions for, for you from your end to them?
I mean, see, it basically also depends. I mean, they need to dive into as to why they lost that opportunity. Okay, so it
Okay.
might be basically skill based, right? So there are jobs which are going away only because not that the guys who are losing those opportunities are not good at it, right? Possibly those opportunities won't exist in the future, so they need to upskill themselves, maybe reskill themselves, and then look out for different opportunities. And I see many, and that's why the edtech is booming. Edtech is moving one for the school education, right? And the other big segment is certifications and upskilling by the likes of an academy, Upgrad, and all, right? So one thing which I definitely see is that they need to upskill, and upskill doesn't mean that you need to spend money and take up courses. I think there is a lot which is already there on YouTube. There are a lot instructors that are giving you knowledge for free on YouTube or so. You need to just find that TV. And again, be open. I mean, you need to have a wider net. You can't have a smallest net that hey, because I was in manufacturing, I only want manufacturing. Just be open to a
Explore it.
broader set of opportunities. Yeah.
Correct.
Great.
Thanks, Ankit, for enlightening us. I think me and Adiba had a certain set of questions to discuss, but again, this discussion took a whole different perspective, and we discussed so many things. Thanks a lot for clearing all our queries, which we
No
represented
problem.
as the student community. We tried to discuss
Sure.
the typical problems that is being faced in the MBA and the engineering community, especially we touched about corporates, the experienced people, the way forward, what sort of, we also discussed what sort of products that might come, that the students might expect soon. So yeah, all those
Yeah.
things gave us a lot of scope to reflect upon, and there were a lot of takeaways. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ankit, in your busy schedule. And yeah,
It was
thanks a
actually
lot.
my pleasure to be talking to you guys, and thank you so much for providing me this opportunity.
Yeah,
Correct,
like in
correct,
the
Ankit.
starting, as I mentioned, that it will be a fruitful event for us, so it is. Thank you so much,
Nice.
Ankit.
Yeah, and my last two lines for our viewers. So, viewers, if you like the video, if you think you have something to take away after this session, after this podcast, do give it a thumbs up. Share your feedback in the comment section, and subscribe to our channel. Share it amongst your network so that everybody can be benefited. And let's have a happy learning. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. See you. Bye.